Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I wanted to talk about the current events surrounding the mediation between Pakistan and the United States and Iran. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, I've come across a post on X by Tactical Tribune. I'm going to put it up here. Pakistan issued key points after the quadrilateral meeting with Egypt, Saudi, and the Turkish foreign minister today. And it goes on to list the points that, that were put forward. And, while all this is going on, basically, I wanted to say that, given Donald Trump's past or his history of negotiating and then subsequently striking, and when you look at the level of force that is being brought into the Persian Gulf region, as well as, the reinforcement of the naval and air supremacy in the region, couple that with the 5,000 plus ground troops that are being assembled off the coast of Iran, for me, it signals one thing and one thing only, that a limited ground invasion of some sort is going to take place. The United States, I suspect, are going to put boots on the ground in Kharg Island, the Abu Musa, those little islands there in the Strait of Hormuz. And, the Iranians are posturing. You're getting a lot of rhetoric coming out of Iran that they're waiting and they're ready. And I suspect that these negotiations in Pakistan are just a smokescreen by the Americans or by Donald Trump to lull the Iranians, but also to get to build up the resources, the American resources within the Gulf region, so that the Americans can then launch this limited ground invasion. And I to be honest, I don't think that these negotiations are going to end up anywhere. I don't think anything positive is going to come out of these negotiations, simply because, when you look at Donald Trump's personality, when you look at the rhetoric, when you look at his past actions, you understand that this is a man that is on a mission. He's a man out to create a legacy. And the last thing he wants is to be tied down in a war, because that is not good for his legacy, or alternatively having been accused of lost a war. So he's going to do everything within his power to make sure some semblance of what they set out to achieve in Iran is actually achieved, so that he can then walk away with some sort of a victory. He's made mention recently about controlling Iranian oil, and we know that once he controls Iranian oil, he's already controlling Venezuelan oil. The United States is a net producer, largest net producer of oil at the moment. And with what is going on in the Middle East, where the Iranians are attacking, the Gulf states, he is now a de facto controller of oil within the Middle East as well, because America has just solidified its position in terms of the Gulf nations being forced to rely on United States military presence. Now, I've also come across an article on X posted by a gentleman, Shanaka Anselm Pereira, and I'm going to put that article up here. And, he's drawing a parallel between, 1971, when Henry Kissinger made his historic trip to Beijing to meet with Chairman Mao. And the only time that was envisaged as a possibility was under a Nixon administration, because Nixon was an ardent anti-communist. So there was nobody within the American administrations prior to Nixon that were capable of making a trip to Beijing or meeting with Chairman Mao himself and not raising any fears within the American heartland. Because, Nixon was somebody that could not be swayed. He was an anti-communist. Now, we know that the trip was made because there were rumblings between the Soviets and the Chinese, and there was a break. We know that Mao had wanted, it was something that was simmering, from Mossad's acquisition of the speech that Khrushchev had made at the party congress where he denounced Stalin, and Mao had come out and been absolutely appalled at the remarks that Khrushchev had made, denouncing Stalin. And when you had the leakage of that speech where Khrushchev had denounced Stalin being made public because a Mossad agent had managed to ascertain a copy of that speech, and it was then forwarded on to Dulles. Incidentally, that's when Dulles, who was director of the CIA, had set up and then realized that within the intelligence world, Mossad was actually a force to be reckoned with. Now you had this bonding, this relationship being formed, because Nixon saw this as an opportunity to split up the Sino-Russia axis, or the Sino-Soviet axis, because it was driving a wedge between the Chinese, and it was widening the wedge between the Chinese and the Russians or the Soviets. And 1971 was also the year Bangladesh was formed. If you recall, the Americans had sent their fleet to the Bay of Bengal. The British had sent their fleet, which subsequently had to make a U-turn and go and park off in Madagascar, because the Soviets under Brezhnev had intervened in support of the Indians. And the only other country that supported the Indians were the Israelis. Everybody else was against the Indians. Yet there was a mass genocide being perpetuated in Pakistan, because Bangladesh had not been formed by then, against the Bengalis. And the Nixon was so terrified that it would upend the relationship that he was trying to build with Mao, that he threatened Indira Gandhi. However, it didn't play out in his favor, because when Brezhnev dispatched his nuclear fleet, the British then had to pull back. The Americans pulled back as well. And the Chinese were given a stern warning by Brezhnev that if they intervened in this war between India and Pakistan, then the Chinese would have to face the might of the Soviet army. So, it is indeed telling that Ishaq Dar is going to make that same journey. And I agree with Shanaka in terms of the optics of that. There is a parallel between that trip that was made by Kissinger at that point and the trip being made now. However, I fundamentally disagree with everything else that he mentions in this article, simply because Pakistan is not doing this because it wants to save humanity or because it is a trusted ally. Pakistan is being used as a pawn. It has been leveraged against the Chinese. It has been leveraged against the Americans. So Pakistan is basically a mercenary for hire, or in this case, a mercenary turned diplomat for hire. It has to do the bidding, because Pakistan cannot afford to be drawn into a war where it has to choose between Saudi Arabia and honor its mutual defense pact with the Saudis, and then go up against the Iranians, or vice versa. Because neither choice bodes well for Pakistan. Siding with the Iranians against the Saudis means certain cut of their remittances means monies that it owes the Saudis being called up, it doesn't have. And then Pakistan siding with the Saudis means that the significant Shia population within Pakistan will certainly unseat the Pakistani establishment and the military establishment. And make no mistake, the Pakistani military are absolutely no match for the Iranian military. The only thing the Pakistanis have going for them is they are a nuclear armed nation. And much of that was put to bed when the Indians hammered them during Operation Sindoor. So, while everybody is looking at this diplomacy being played out by Pakistan as something wondrous, it's not. Pakistan is stuck between a rock and a hard place. This is an existential threat to the regime and the military and the ISI's survival. They are being hammered on all fronts. The Baloch, the Taliban in Afghanistan, reinforcing the border with India, discontent within the populace, economy in shatters. They need a win, otherwise their government could capitulate at any time. So this is, when you say Pakistan is China's iron brother, that iron brother relationship does not exist. The Chinese do not trust the Pakistanis. If they did, they would have continued pouring more money into the CPEC project and it would have continued. They do not trust the Pakistanis. Too many Chinese nationals have lost their lives in Balochistan. Khwaja Asif has come out and categorically said that the Pakistani military is woefully incapable of containing the Baloch insurgency. They are unable to manage what is happening in Balochistan. So in that respect, I disagree totally with Shanaka Anselm's Pereira's post on X. I think that the only agreement I have with that is the trip is significant. However, you have to understand, Trump controlling the oil coming out of Iran means that he now has a tighter grip on the amount of oil and the price at which China pays for its oil. And that adversely affects the Chinese economy and the Chinese ability to posture and maintain a steady growth. So I want to thank you for spending time with us. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Please remember to like, share and subscribe as it helps us with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow.